First up on the agenda is Carson Power. No? Oh, we have scene first?
Give them a break.
All right.
Yeah. Chuckle.
Well, that's not gonna be exactly straightforward either, probably.
Yeah, no, it's so fast.
All right. Hey Wesley, how are you?
How are you?
Doing okay?
How is everybody? Biggie, welcome home. You're still tan. You brought the good weather with you. Yeah. I guess I got a couple updated site plans on this layout. I mean, it really hasn't changed very much at all since a couple months that we've been here. Well, I'll give you a brief overview of kind of what happened, where we are presently, and what we need to do to move forward. So Scene is owned by Eric Hutchinson and his partner Keith. They bought the old Dillinger property. The Dillinger property had a cow barn on it along with silos, and it was an agricultural area. It was 3 acres, 3.4 acres. Dillinger had gotten rid of the cows and it sat empty for a while. They bought it. We came and got a equipment storage usage on the building. And that approval was conditional, waiting for the New York State DOT, who still is in possession of the plans that I was told. The engineer was away for the Easter week, but is going to have something back to us very shortly. So that's where we are with the entrance. From that time, a section of the building, the owners were approached by a company that wanted to do manufacturing in the building. Manufacturing is an allowable use in the district that it is in. So the town recently redid the comprehensive plan. One of the things in the comprehensive plan was that they wanted to create this district that had manufacturing where manufacturing already existed, and they created a light industrial zone to achieve that goal. The zoning was then changed and the maps were made and the zone was created. One of the things that slipped by everybody, and me included, I was on the comprehensive plan and the zoning revisions committee, was that manufacturing is allowed and a site plan approval, which gives you the authority to make sure everything's safe and looks good, but it also has to be on a 5-acre parcel. That's one of the requirements. But there is no 5-acre parcels in the light industrial zone. There's not one. One of the good things that we do have in our flexible zoning that was written a while ago that Warren had put together is that a waiver process that allows you as a board to look over and make determinations as long as we are not jeopardizing the welfare of the people of Pine Plains or the safety of the people of Pine Plains, that we're allowed to create waivers of that nature without going to the zoning board of appeals and coming back and extending the process extensively. So I wrote, I believe on February 3rd, I gave you a letter which detailed that waiver process, where that was in the law, and spelled it out, so it was easy to read. And from that, we came to the board meeting last month. We discussed the changes. I believe from my recollection that we decided not to create a new application. We decided to modify the old one. Is that how the board kind of remembers? The old one hadn't gone through yet, so we were thinking about not creating another application at the same time. Is that
amended site plan.
right?
Okay. Does that sound right, Warren?
I thought it was approved.
Yeah, we already approved and passed the resolution. They were just waiting on the conditions have not, the DOT.
DOT with the condition of the final approval.
The
Right.
DOT, and then.
So we would have to do
There
a,
should be a new application.
Well, I did fill out a new application. I mean, we can handle it whatever way the board feels or Warren feels necessary. It just,
I don't think how does it change anything?
How is it changing? The only-
How does it change anything if it's a new application versus amending?
I don't see how it changes.
Right, it doesn't really just. Okay, so it's not substantive to.
So we came and we talked and Jerry Peel and his partner Chris, are trying to do the manufacturing business, which is for cannabis in the building. I sent out a letter this month with a detailed plan of the building and, what sections and a look. In some of Chris's comments, answering questions at the last board meeting, he was explaining some industry standards. At this point, as I expressed in my letter to the board, the applicants do not have the ability to extract any natural chemicals out of the plant. All they have from New York State is the ability to trim and manufacture the raw ingredients of the plant and no extraction whatsoever. So we did get into a discussion about extraction last month, which confused me as well.
Is that the water?
With the water and the special machine, which I have no knowledge of, I'm not gonna lie or pretend to. At that point, to kind of calm down, because everybody was getting a little up. I decided that I would do deep test, perk test to show what the soils were on the thing, which I did, I believe, like 2 days later. And then realized, because I was not knowledgeable, that this was not even part of this manufacturing plan at this point. Eventually, they hope to apply to New York State and get that. And if they do get that and that happens, happy to come back to the board and have all the knowledge of what we're going to be doing to make that process happen, with the knowledge of what the soils are, to make sure that no pollutant and no environmental impacts and no discharges happening that would be detrimental to any town residents or anybody in the area. So I did include those deep tests and perk tests just to show it. I figured I did it. I might as well include it in the application, but it has nothing to do with anything at this point. So with that, we also, I gave you a letter that kind of stated and laid that out. We gave you the permits from New York State for the two guys, their company, as well as I have in here, Warren had requested the application for the exact address change for it at this address. Tricia,
Of the address change of the permit for they received.
that they're allowed to manufacture at this address that we're talking about right now. And I had gotten an email from Trish asking for whatever they had submitted to the state to get that approved as well. So I have that I'll hand in as well, that can be reviewed. We did a environmental assessment long form, which was included there. Again, the building's up, nothing's really getting changed. All they're doing is some manufacturing inside. The general consensus is there's not going to be any signage. They don't want people going there. They would be happy if nobody even knew they existed in that building. We gave you in case of the smell and it was a carbon scrubbers.
Yeah.
They were carbon scrubbers, which I gave you the schematics, which research had been done that if there was any smells, that this would take care of those smells to mitigate any impact that could have. With that, I made a few changes. I located the wells in the proximity of all the buildings that were on there, and show the deep test that I did do. And I believe that's the only changes to the site plan. With that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions or go from here.
Any machinery in this,
What's
process? Any machinery gonna be installed?
Any machinery?
There's one piece of machinery which is
designed to actually manufacture cigarettes. So that's the one piece that's gonna be installed there.
Is there a bathroom?
There is an existing bathroom. I'm gonna show you the schematic drawing. Oh, it's on my other.
So,
One second.
so where's the septic field for that bathroom?
Give me one second, I'll show you.
That's a. Septic tank riser.
Right.
Well, it just has the tank.
So the bathroom, this is a blow up of the building, the bathroom is here, the septic field, septic tank. Goes out to this riser and then it goes out right in front of the riser.
Right, so is that, I think you mentioned there was 150 gallons of water that was gonna be used daily.
But now that's gone.
That
because of
was the
Traction.
that was for the extraction that I did not even know that we did not have the permit to do, and that at this point, we need they can't even buy the machinery to do that until they have the licensing from New York State, which hasn't even been applied for.
Right, but it's in the EAF. That's
Oh.
included in the
In the old EAF or the new one?
well, the one that you sent, but
Okay.
anyway.
The full one.
But my other
Yeah.
question is, if the septic tank and field is here,
Mhm.
why are you doing perk tests out in that corner of
Be-
the property?
Because the no manufacturing waste, I'm gonna say waste, but it's actually gray water can be put into a residential septic system, so it's got to be its own separate unit. So therefore, you know, the thing that makes the most sense in the building without tearing the whole thing up is to come have, if it was ever there, is to come out right out the back and then into a spot that's right there.
Right, okay.
So I mean, this makes the EAF a lot easier. It's basically just vapors we're worried about at this point. Right, Warren?
I didn't hear it.
Being that they're not doing the extraction, we're just worried about vapors and EAF, well, you know, see.
I have other concerns.
No, I'm talking about
Oh.
on the, like EAF, you know, environmentally wise.
Yeah, has the EAF been reviewed by George? Because I didn't find it to be adequate.
I did not go through. it.
Yeah, I want, like you to review that. I had some questions about it. It's not all the questions are not answered,
Okay,
so that has to be reviewed. I can send you my markup, your copy of what I found. But I have a bigger problem. But I don't understand. Did you say that you provided the application materials to the Office of Cannabis Management? Have you provided that to us?
I only got the email a week ago from Trish and I have them in my hand.
Oh, I thought you said that you.
No.
no, she has it, he has it now.
Because I want to see that.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have them electronically or just in hand?
I have to have them electronically. I got emailed them, so.
Okay, then we
I
can
have- I
forward the
did-
email.
Yes.
To,
Yeah, the question I had when you supplied this, I read through the guidance for adult use conditional cultivators. And it seems to require a submission of a operating plan and a site plan to the Office of Cannabis Management. How did you submit that for this site when you didn't have approval for this site? Was your submission, did it include this site?
I mean, I'm happy to give you what I was,
Because you need an operating plan and a site plan for where you're conducting these activities.
this was what I was provided, which was the application.
Does everyone have a copy of that by the way? The guidance for adult use conditional cultivating, the required.
Oh,
Can you make a copy of this for everybody? I think I sent it to you.
yeah, I thought that went around.
Yeah,
I
I
saw,
saw
I read
this.
this. Maybe it only went to me.
That was the application.
I didn't see it.
Well, I did it for 2 days, so.
Wesley, you said there was some sort of address change they
This
submitted?
is not. Like, this is not there are detailed requirements for submission of an operating plan and a site plan for the site where you're gonna perform this manufacturing end of your license approval.
So it's my understanding, Jerry, that
We did,
it's my understanding, Jerry, that the materials were submitted to New York State.
Yeah.
Whether New York State, got every material they needed or not, that was part of this application and went into a detailed review. I'm not privy to that. But the application did go in with what was included, and came back and was approved for that site.
Okay, so I want to see that application. I want to see whatever was submitted,
That's the application that was there.
possibly meet all the requirements of the guidance material. Possible.
Jerry, would it be possible to forward
Yeah,
an email to the state, right, to Warren, so he could verify that that is what was there?
we can certainly do that, yeah.
Certainly.
I'm just confused too, are you saying that it's not approved and they're saying they have their
What
like,
I'm saying is there's a guidance material for adult conditional cultivated,
Mhm.
okay? Very detailed in what has to be submitted.
Yeah, we've had the operating plan.
Excuse me, let me finish and then you can explain. And when I read this document, and I think you all should read this, it seems to require that when they submit the license application to OCM, they have to submit an operating plan, a site plan for the facility where this is going to be located. It can't possibly have happened because you haven't gotten any approval for this facility.
So, yeah, I have a question. So you said what Warren's looking at right now is the approval for the original location or for this location?
For this location.
Yeah, how?
See, I believe, and I don't know this for a fact, Warren, I believe that the original license was granted for a spot in Boston Corners.
Okay.
And right now, all they've done is change the address. It's an address change to the manufacturing location, which might not require all the
Change the
detailed
address,
things.
you have to submit a new.
All I'm saying, Warren, is that's all I know. I understand what you're saying as well.
You have to.
We're happy to email you the exact email. I went to the state and I'll forward that. We'll forward that all the board.
So Warren,
members as well.
if they did this and the state approved it, not realizing they didn't have all their requirements, I mean,
yeah.
how does that, does that affect
Let's
us?
see what the state approved. The problem is that I don't think that we can approve this application until we're confident that the proper application for this license was submitted to OCM and approved for this site.
Can I make, hold on, Jerry. Can I make one comment? If the state requires a site plan approval to be able to get the license, how is an applicant supposed to get a site plan approval without coming to you first? So to me, it's a mute. To me, it's a mute point.
All right, everyone.
State for the
Calm
site
down.
plan approval and the operating plan, that is all submitted to the state.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to see that.
We're definitely signing it.
And maybe the original one too. Does it matter? The original application? For the original address?
It has to be for this site.
So we don't care about that one at all.
I don't care about the other, they're not.
Okay,
they're not
I'm
getting
asking.
Approval, they're not asking you.
So we only care about the change of address.
I only care about this site and whether this site has received the proper approval by the state before we can act. Because otherwise.
Is it the board's privy to overlook the state and their regulations and how the state performs their work? Is it that what the planning board is here for to do? You don't have to answer that, but my question.
My problem is the use of cannabis in the state of New York is extremely new. The Office of Cannabis Management is extremely new. The state does not have all their ducks in a row. That's been clearly evidenced. So whether or not they're screwing up on the application, they very well might, but we have to make sure.
I understand.
Can there be manufacturing in our spot? Can that,
You can do a
whether it's peanut butter or cannabis, can there be manufacturing?
Well, that gets back to another issue that we have to talk
Another
about.
issue that I've asked
Drew-
our
Well,
planner to, because they wrote the law for our cannabis law.
Oh, this is what
Is
we're.
this even
Yeah.
permitted at this site under our zoning regulations? I don't know. But Frank had time to weigh in on this, but
well, that would mean that if it's handled different than any other manufacturing, is that what you're saying,
they
Mark?
are handled.
Why?
Oh, yeah,
Because
what,
State oversight over
Eric.
this process is, and they have pretty detailed regulations, and it doesn't look to me like it's fairly loosey-goosey, it's hundreds of pages of regulation.
Frank,
Yes, yep.
okay, so do you have any comment on this as far as the manufacturing of cannabis versus regular manufacturing, how the state's dealing with that?
Yeah.
And how we should look at it?
And by the way, I only got this, recently, so I haven't been through all of it as you have, but I think there's a basic question. This, as I understand this operation, aside from our cannabis law, which, we worked on to allow the retail sales of cannabis. This is different. This is, as I understand it, a processing of, and I wanted to know whether you're growing cannabis in the facility or not. You're just
No.
processing it.
Just processing. If
Okay.
it's brought dried to the facility and it's just to trim and extract the flour and then create cigarettes and put some of the flour in jar, which then gets shipped to dispensaries in New York State.
Frank, the way I understand the law, if it's understandable at all, it's quite complicated. Is that if you're an adult use conditional cultivator, you can grow. And there's also a limited amount of production that's permitted in conjunction with that.
With the growing
But
permit?
that production site has to receive site plan approval from the state. Separate and apart from any approvals that we make. That's true. Yeah.
Right. So the question is,
The state has approved
this
this
come right?
site before we can act on it, otherwise we're approving an illegal operation. Okay. then Get that. to it.
yeah, I think it's a threshold question, which usually, well, I think technically, Warren, correct me, that when an application comes in, the building inspector really is going to look at what is that use? And is this, for instance, a manufacturing use? He would make the determination whether this complies with the use categories of the zoning. I haven't checked all of those yet. I know we did write the, as you know, the manufacturing zone. We hadn't thought of this particular issue, so we didn't specify it. And I think therefore it would be probably the building inspector's call. In other words, we didn't know about this potential use, so we did not list it in the use categories when we wrote the zoning. So it's an interpretation of what is included in manufacturing. Is this a use that the building inspector would determine to be a manufacturing use?
So Drew?
Drew, I didn't mean to, I saw That's you on okay. Zoom, and I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, but I think you make the initial call on this.
I agree.
All I can
And what
say,
I did, I
Can I just
Wait,
interject for 1 second?
Wesley, just let Drew talk.
reviewed this in very generic terms. I went to the definition of manufacturing. I think someone should read that into the record.
It's the manufacturing definition by the Pine Plains zoning law, any process whereby the nature, size, shape, articles or raw materials are changed, or where articles are assembled or packaged in quantity. And what we're packaging is cannabis
The milers.
or
Yeah, I'm-
milers packaged beef. We could package peanut butter.
Yeah,
It probably meets that definition. If we had to do this over again, the law, we probably would have paid more attention to the possibility that there would also be manufacturing sites. In conjunction with the growing, which we don't have any jurisdiction over. But you know, I'm willing to, given that zoning ordinances are interpreted in favor of the property owner and against the municipality for this application, we probably can overlook that and allow the manufacturing aspect to encompass this use. But we can't overlook the requirement that for this site, you have to have approval from the state. So we have to see that.
can we just, I just want to back up actually to the first issue. And we talked about the waiver that they're
Waiver's
asking.
okay, I checked.
You
that.
checked it out. Okay, so that's okay.
That was actually the intent. It's not a bulk regulation.
Right.
Yeah, I sent that to Frank today, but I cleared that up in my own mind today. I did write that section.
Okay.
And the intent was that for supplementary regulations, for those additional requirements that are in the zoning law that are not bulk regulation, not a bulk regulation, that the planning board would have the power to waive that. That you have to exercise that discretion and come to
Right. Do we have to do that separately or just in the resolution? Can we take a straw
final
poll?
decision on, you know, whether to approve this or not. You'll have to
So-
approve the waiver if that's what you're gonna do.
Does
The
anyone,
problem I have is that you've got two uses in one building, you know, and that's the other issue.
okay, and how's that handled in the code?
Well, there, if you read our regulations, our supplementary regulations, there are certain restrictions on parking and you have to take a look at that pretty carefully if you're approving two uses within one building. And waiving the 5-acre requirement at the same time.
Parking, all right. Well, I mean, no, the only people that go to this would be employees of the manufacturing facility and people.
No, I think they're delivery. Didn't you say there are 5 to 6 deliveries a day? I thought I put something to that effect. I'm gonna be- where do you, how do you get?
One van once a week, will be doing a run according to them. Now, maybe it's twice a week. Otherwise, it's just the daily employees coming in and out.
That's just the employees. You're not gonna be delivering.
And how many employees do you anticipate having?
3,
At maximum 10, at
five.
maximum. But generally 3 to 5, right?
Yeah.
But we don't
And,
wanna-
and where's the loading dock?
So the loading area, you pull right into the building. If you remember, it's off to the side here and there's a big garage door that you pull right into there.
So the trucks would actually pull completely in the building?
I don't know. Are you planning on keeping it's a van? It's like a Sprinter van. Are you planning on keeping the Sprinter van in the actual building or is that gonna be outside the building? And when you go to make deliveries, then the product will go into the van and then go?
will be outside and then loaded from the building, taken out.
they don't want exhaust.
So where, these are delivered to retail sites? That
Yeah.
marijuana?
Yeah, as a cultivator and a processor, a light processor in this case, we have to sell to a retailer. We can't sell direct to the public.
So that would be one delivery a week?
It really depends. I mean, it might be as many as 2, but not going to be that many.
Mike, may I make a suggestion on just the EAF? I was reading over it and Wesley, I think to the board, it would be good to put some of this discussion. For instance, the EAF doesn't describe the project right now. That's the very first page in it. So if the project could be described on what's being done, and then the fact that the waiver is in the planning board's jurisdiction, the EAF should have, basic information just to make sure that everything is filled in on it. I think that's relatively, straightforward for the applicant to do.
Kind of summarize exactly what's going on, the waiver process that is needed. to get the manufacturing in the brief description in the front. I also realized, Frank, that we had some liquids in there, so I do have to revise that and make some revisions as well, as there will be no impounding of liquids in the EAF at this time.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is you're doing a long form EAF, which is the right EAF, and it suggests that you put a map in. You might put the site plan in so the reader of the EAF, understands where you are, just the basic. You've got all this information, but I think some map that just locates the project and have a site plan with it.
Certainly, I'll put the site plan in, and then I'll blow up the blow up of the building schematic as well.
It also doesn't properly identify the name of the applicant. You put your name down as the applicant. I want
So would the applicant really be, that's what we were having difficult with. Is the applicant really the owner of the building? Is the applicant the person that's gonna lease and have the manufacturing
but you would explain that in your EAF, in your brief description of the proposed action. And then the applicants would be the owners of this facility,
of the owners?
the licensed owner. Not you.
Well, the
Um,
licensed
the
owner is not the owner of the building.
Owner of the business, he-
Manufacturing
yeah, the owner of
is
the,
not the owner of the building.
Well, I'm assuming that the licensees from the state are making they're gonna have a lease agreement with the owner of the building. So
Right.
that they are then submitting the application as a licensee of the site. And they would need to sign off on the approval of the owner of the building to allow them to make that application.
right, which we have a page for that in our application.
So-
Our applications have a page for signing off for the property owner. Um,
And then
I-
I'd like to, while we're doing it.
yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to. Office of Cannabis Management listed as an involved agency.
As, I'm sorry.
An
Involved
involved
agency.
agency, we
Involved
list the
agency.
government approval. You haven't identified that office.
We're also going to keep it asking so all doors on.
And that's it.
That's just the story.
Yeah, you have to discuss the waiver issue as Frank has indicated. And then they ask you in D1C is the proposed action and expansion of the existing project. Well, I mean, it sort of is because you're doubling up on the use of the building, so you should identify that.
So that's where I was confused, because the EAF, I wasn't sure whether I was doing it, and we're gonna do it as a new application, so I was trying to discuss both, but
Yeah,
we're a single application and we're doubling up the usage of the building.
You might also list in the EAF, Wesley, under the government entities and approvals. We don't need any approval from Dutchess County, but we usually list, if you're within 500 feet of the state road, are you? I haven't seen the site plan, so I'm
yeah,
asking whether we
Yeah,
should.
they are.
it would be a 239M.
Yeah, 239M from Dutchess County.
So we'll list them along with the Office of Cannabis
Yeah,
Management.
they're not really an involved agency.
They're not right. They're not an involved agency, but we usually list them just as for their discretionary view,
Certainly.
They may come back with nothing, or they may come back with, some comments.
Not with the new people they have there. They've been weighing in on everything.
Yeah.
Like, is there any there's no requirement to have it segregated beyond. Like, you don't have to have like a fence around it compared to the other place. I'm looking at the security requirements. I guess I take it that would be on the site plan you submitted to them. License holder must install fencing, lock gates, secure doors, or physical barriers sufficient to prevent unauthorized access to production and storage area, commercial grade locks, blah, 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 fencing. Must be installed on all doors, fencing or entries, barrier design and installation should be context specific, account for risks posed by adjacent properties or persons or activities. All cannabis must be stored, it goes on and on. And then also about the waste disposal, like where's the waste gonna be kept? Like, I don't know, is there like cuttings or things that are
So the byproduct
Yeah,
of,
that gets transported back to the cultivation location and compost.
So it wouldn't sit outside at all.
So then would the environmental form D2 subsection R, which has to do with waste, would that be mentioned? In terms of how the waste is handled? Because currently it says no, there's no waste.
Yeah, I think on waste, Wesley, you might want to check yes and just explain it.
That's why I
Certainly.
wanted to fully AF.
No, I agree.
I just had a question about, the EAF talks about being, next to a wetland.
next to a wetland.
Yeah.
So there is a wetland on the other side of the town when you pull into where the town garage is.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, it's like. No.
Well,
Yeah, people, it was an unofficial dump.
That's why there's tires.
But is the property actually next to the wetland?
It's not extremely adjacent. No, it doesn't border a wetland.
Because you say yes in the form.
Well, that's because DC, DC has a mapping app, so you do your EAF through that mapping app. And if it's within 500 feet, they consider it adjacent and they automatically check that for you. So that was a check by.
So it's within 500 feet?
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Wesley,
all done?
Yes.
can I interrupt you?
No.
The EAF also talks in terms of parking and shared parking. You didn't answer those provisions, but there is gonna be shared parking space, so pay attention to that section.
Well, these tenants will have their own parking. It's that with parking.
I don't know how you're doing it. You have to explain to us how to.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see where the parking is for the employees. You know, I mean, obviously the storage, is very minimal, like someone's gonna come and. You know, move their thing or take it out, yeah. Well, we need to see where the employees are gonna park for,
So, the health department they're gonna have to approve your septic system. Right?
Parking on the site plan itself.
yes.
Well, the health department's gonna have to approve the septic.
I guess that depends on. You know, if. If the board, feels it needs to go to the health department and there's a septic there.
Oh, I thought you were installing a new water system.
No, they got rid of that because they're not doing.
Yeah, so it had the original from the cow barn when all the cows got washed and milked and whatnot, so it handled quite a bit of load back then, but when we talked about this thing that could happen, that is not happening now, and it may never happen, that's and I thought and I was mistaken, and that's why we had talked about that at last meeting, but that is not gonna happen where we have to get any
So if you
approval.
upgrade the manufacturing capabilities, then you're gonna.
Right, and then if that happens and they do ever get the the ability to do that, where the state will let them, then obviously we'll come back to revise and I'll have more knowledge of what these machines are and what's going in the ground.
And that would be a separate system,
Yeah, no, I got it.
not the existing set.
So is there a DOH requirement about the number of bathrooms for employees, for the number of employees?
So I believe it's 100, there is requirements. I believe it's a certain amount of gallons per employee.
Well, the building code would be what would govern, businesses and bathrooms, right? But yeah, the health department would have a regulation speaking to gallons per day. So 15 gallons a day per employee, for instance.
And I think that's where the 150 comes in.
So if you had 10,
site plan.
10 employees max, you'd have 100 gallons a day, as far as health department.
Right, and so do we know if the?
So
septic
who
field
looks at that
accommodates
and says that that's okay?
So, again, so in an instance like this. It depends on the planning board with the local knowledge to say, okay, well, this septic was there, right? It had a certain use. If you feel that use is being. Burdened further than it was previously, then you could refer it for someone to take a look. It sounds like it probably had more flow. Again, I don't have personal knowledge of this. You guys probably have a lot more information of what flow was in that building when that septic was in operation, if you will.
Yeah. It's over.
More flow over that 100 gallons. You're on a firm standing to say.
When
we're
was,
not-
when was the septic field put in? How old is it?
When it was built.
Yeah, I would have to, I wouldn't be able to answer that, and it would have, we'd have to look at the, at the old tax records of when it in. I believe it happened in the nineties, but this is me just going off of my recollection when I kind of remember the barn going in there.
Pretty sure it was early 90s.
You only have the ten, yeah, we don't know where the field, we're just assuming the fields go this way.
Yeah, you know, as a surveyor, I can only show what I can see.
Yeah.
So obviously, we're not gonna go in and scrape it all up, but I did see the riser. I did look and make sure that that was the septic tank. It does run out of the septic tank. I can't tell you whether it's 10 fields at 100 feet, whether or
And we
what
don't know how big this tank is.
the septic tank itself is when I looked in, I would say it's anywhere from 1,200 to a 2,000 gallon tank. Nothing smaller. Cement.
Well, I'd say see if Dougie put it in, if you could see if someone has records. So, what's that? You don't think so? Oh, yeah, let's see if we can get the records, a schematic or something. Yeah. Well, they're around. No one, Alicia, and ask them. They have a record of it.
Do you have to do an ag data? Does he have to do an ag data statement for this? Because
Yeah.
then 21,
Ag district.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a little dot in the ag district because it was an agricultural use at one point, so nothing around it. But I did do an ag data statement. It's in there along with the map. I would imagine that they update that like every 5 or 7 years and then it'll come out next time, but.
So then you have to notify. Just Lonan
one farm.
or whoever is.
Well, I think Adams
On
is
Ryan Road,
within the 5.
I think Glenn, aren't they doing Adams's?
Oh,
Well, yeah,
man,
notify.
I'm not.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
notify.
No, you have to
them
know.
Anyway, for the.
Do them both.
special permit.
We're covered.
One notice. You combine the notices.
By the way, just so is straw poll, like, does anyone anticipate, on the board, anticipate a problem with the waiver? No, probably not. Alright, so. We'll handle that later.
You're gonna have to make
Understand,
detailed findings on it.
Understand. but I mean, if all of a sudden 5 people are like, no, I don't want that waiver, then we're not gonna
Okay.
have them go through all this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, anything else on this?
I think they got enough work.
Anything else, Warren?
Well, we
Nothing?
can't do much until we get this.
Right,
Because as you can see, there's a lot of requirements for the site plan and operating plan imposed by the state, which we're gonna wanna see. You know, you mentioned a fence, there might be other things, but all of those things we're gonna have to require as well.
what are the locks? Whatever. And we said we measured and well, not that, we said it's not, it doesn't count for the 500-foot thing, right? Because it's not retail. Doesn't count for the 500-foot for the school.
Is it less than 500 feet from the school?
It's from the entrance to the building from what I read, but it was strictly retail and it was like 505 feet. So it's right on the threshold.
So this isn't a retail.
But it isn't a
operation, so that doesn't-
Uh-huh.
I don't know if the state has a requirement.
I looked, I made the applicant look quite a bit before I even took this on because I said, I wouldn't want to waste everybody's time. So I didn't find any, we didn't find any, we looked.
All right, well, you got some homework.
So schedule wise,
We can't schedule a public hearing. We don't have all a completed application in front of us. We need all those
They're
things.
not-
Yeah, we're not ready.
so what we're looking at is, those few things, and then, we schedule the public hearing the following month, is that, just, so I have a understanding and the owners and the applicant, have an understanding of what kind of time frame we're looking at. Obviously, they're pushing to get started, so anything that we can do to help them along.
The quickest thing you can help is to get the completed application and then we can consider
So if I have. that-
scheduling a public hearing and then.
Schedule a public hearing.
So is that a possibility to get to you if I did everything in the next week, we could push things along, or it's another
We-
month out before it's possible to schedule a public hearing?
We have to schedule the hearing. Yeah, no, we can't, we have to make sure we have everything lined up. We're gonna have to. Make sure the experts are happy and we're happy, and then we're gonna schedule it. I'm not averse at the time, we want to have a special meeting to do it. We've been having 2 meetings a month. But I mean, once we have everything, then we think about doing a special meeting if we want to. So.
So the quicker I get everything to be reviewed,
Complete.
the better off the applicant is.
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody's on the loop, so you send it to our engineer, to our planner, and so,
Well, you send it to Trish and Trish,
yeah, Frank didn't get all, I sent some stuff to him.
well, Frank, we didn't know Frank was consulting on this till today, right?
Oh.
So.
I like.
Right, yeah, so, but that's good, we were very glad to have Frank's expertise on it. Okay, so
Thank you.
that's the game plan.
Do we want buzz or do we want hot?
But
Well, I think, thank you for your comment.
we're out of the campfire. All right,
Trish, this is a packet of everything I sent
Thank
digitally.
you.
Okay, go.
screens, I don't even have the ability to have screens on.
I like that.
Okay, so now we move on to Carson Power. What's that? Sure, yeah. I before paper, I always go. Okay, I'm really busy outside of this, this has just been bananas, so it's.
You gotta see the site plan and all this stuff 30 days after we should get the license.
And then on top of it, my young.
After they give it to you, day 45.
Made it travel teams.
Right.
It's full.
Oh, it's the Arceus.
I know exactly what you're doing.
Taxi service. Okay, so. What do you want to have any of these submissions pulled up so you can update us on things?
I think what I was gonna do is just kind of run through an inventory of the things we've submitted since the last meeting, and then I have Matt with me from Saratoga Associates, who's our visual expert, so I think I have some handouts on the visual map we submitted, and I was hoping we could kind of end on talking about the visual analysis and.
Do we have anything we want Tricia to pull up to put on the screen?
No, I think we're good with the screen for tonight. We have a board for.
Okay.
for share. So you see on our revision, we've added cannabis now that we're gonna be growing. In a manufacturing, for the record, that's a joke.
Well played.
In between the panels, right?
Volunteers to harvest it. So I guess quickly, I'll kind of run through, we submitted quite a few supplemental documents to the board between the previous workshop. And I think as early as yesterday or the day before. So one was we did submit the interconnection agreements between our 2 5-megawatt solar facilities in Central Hudson, just to evidence that we do have signed contracts with the utility. We submitted our forest cover survey, which was required by U.S. Fish and Wildlife and New York State DEC to evaluate impacts on bat habitat on site. So that was, again, we've been corresponding with both of those agencies independently. I wanted to share that with the board, as I know it's been asked about previously. And we're still waiting on final feedback from both of those agencies, which I'm optimistic we'll have for you by the May meeting, but they're certainly backed up. So I don't have anything further on plants and animals tonight, but I did submit the forest cover survey analysis. Happy to answer any questions on that. We submitted a copy of our phase 1 ESA, which evidences that there were no wrecks found on site when we did that survey. We also submitted a module cut sheet with the Hanwha modules, which we're currently using in our site design. Just as a reminder, the panels can change when we actually go to construction. It's highly variable depending on what the supply chain is and what panels are available at the market at that moment. So we're currently projecting these Hanwha modules, but it could change. We did include a suggestion there that this module has no materials included that would ever be considered hazardous materials. We would suggest that the board potentially consider including as a condition to approval, giving the code enforcement officer the ability to approve the modules that we will use on site in order to review the spec sheet, ensure that there's no hazardous materials included, and then code enforcement can give a thumbs up to the components and go from there. So giving the town some control there over the module that ultimately will be used on site. That was the module cut sheet. We provided a construction noise mitigation plan. So at the last meeting, we talked about further restricting noisy activities on Saturdays as mitigation for any impacts to noise. So we were happy to do that. We talked with our construction team. We can commit to essentially no trucks or loud actions on Saturdays. That list is pretty comprehensive. You'll see the prohibited activities is almost all the construction activities, and what would be permitted on Saturdays is essentially manual labor and just kind of some wiring and other assembly, but no machinery that would be considered loud. So we hope the board finds that helpful. The big one, we did submit revised site plans. So at the previous meeting, we shared with the board essentially the cover sheet. So the high level view for what our site plan revision was. The big change was we pulled off modules off of that southeast corner on the hill, where we kind of turned the corner and faced Skunks Misery Road. So we came all the way up to the top of the ridge, and we enhanced the plantings on that ridge line from 6-foot single wide plantings to 12-foot double wide plantings. So we'll plant 12-foot trees, one in front of the other. At construction, obviously those plants will grow. We think that'll do a tremendous job in mitigating any sort of view shed impacts off of that exposed piece of the ridge line to the southeast part of town. So we submitted the full site plan, which I believe is 27 pages, which is the detailed engineering drawings that typically George dives into. You'll notice in the site plan, per suggestion from the board, we did include additional topographic lines, so it's easier to now follow what the existing contours are today and what the contours will be after the grading is completed on site. So it's very clear now which areas there'll be some modest grading and to what grade it will be completed to. So that's now included in that larger site plan set, which we submitted to the board earlier this week. Additionally, we reviewed and changed our seed mix. So we're now including milkweed both in the interior and exterior of the fence. So that's for food for monarch butterflies. So we see that as mitigation for any impacts to the monarch, although it's not currently a listed species, it's a considered species. I believe that would be helpful as well. And aside from that, we also, because we did a change to our site plan, we also did submit a revision to the EAF Part 1. The revisions are fairly minor, just some changed numbers because our calcs are now a little bit different on impacted acres, that type of thing, because the site plan is a little bit different. That also came with a revised stormwater pollution prevention plan, so the SWIP that accompanies the big plan. We did make one change on our stormwater management. So George did point out an error in our previous calculations. I think it was meadow instead of ag field. There was something that we had miscalculated, so we reran the calcs. The result was the dry basin at the bottom of the driveway. Right, so the bioretention pond, which will just be a vegetated depression, we had to expand that area a little bit. So that was previously a swale, now it's kind of a somewhat larger bioretention area, but again, it'll just be a vegetated indent in the earth, so in a severe stormwater event, it would catch runoff water and not hold the water for more than 24 hours. So not standing water, not currently wet, again, just a dry depression, except in extreme rain events, it'll hold water for up to 24 hours. So that's kind of the bulk of what we submitted. Again, took a lot of suggestions from the board, requests from the board over the last several meetings. And those are the inventory of items we submitted since the last meeting. So I guess before we talk about the visual map we submitted, I'll hand out a few to the board. Any questions or any clarifications we can discuss on any of those items?
Anyone have any?
And I'll hand these out.
Andrew, I have a question. When you took the panels off the ridge line and moved them elsewhere,
Yes.
did that result in having to clear more forest?
No, it should actually be a little bit of a reduced forest area. So that peninsula in the southeast corner, where we're currently paneling over, I think, you know what I'm talking about. We're now preserving at least half of that peninsula to further, because that's really helpful existing vegetative screening from the southeast corner. So we've exceeded our limit of tree clearing inward. So we're thankfully we're able to move some of those modules that were on the perimeter to interior sections of the array that were already going to be cleared. So some sections we'd be able to bring a little bit tighter. We got permission from Nexam to remove the fence that divided the two systems, so we could kind of shuffle things around and reduce the limits of tree clearing, although it's a minor reduction.
So I had a question about the,
You went to Warren's place?
Yeah.
George?
is that where you're burying the line from the panel arrays to the substation, you know, you have an underground line. Do you not have to clear forest to do that?
That's actually an existing farm road that the farmer's been using currently. So it's clear. There might have to be some modest trimming removal, we'll say, but it's it's similar to the road you take when you go up, maybe a little bit thinner, but yeah, that's why if you look at the line, it kind of takes that funny shape. And it's not like a B line, is because it's tracing the existing road. So we'll be able to hopefully easily trench through there and go all the way down to the substation on the existing path.
I had another question. I think at one point, we talked about soil that you were gonna be moving and keeping on site. But do you have a plan currently for where that would be? And do you separate the different soil types based on the nature of the soil, like whether it's soil 1 or 4 or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so Eric would be the best person to answer that in detail, but we do have to go through all of that in order to comply with ag and markets, and that's included in the ag data statement. I believe on the site plans, you will see stockpile areas for those soils identified.
Yeah, so on the new site plan?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
there should be stockpile areas identified
Okay.
in soils.
So with the is it possible to see a map where I think one of the confusing things is when we look at the soil maps, they're not numbered in the way that we're supposed to understand the soil types 1 through 4, being prime farmland soils, they have names. So is it possible to produce a map where you show the project area with the soil types 1 through 4, which would just be really helpful?
Yeah, that's really easy. That's
Yeah.
you can just go on a GIS layer and flip it on. I can actually email the board the
Yeah,
website where you can view the
Well,
whole.
yeah, I don't think I don't think we want to do that
Yeah.
ourselves. Could you just send us the map of the project site with the soils 1 through 4 marked on the map?
Sure, that may be included in the ag data statement, but if not,
No,
that's
I don't think it is.
that's
I think-
really.
So what happens is in the ag data statement, they have apparently other categories of soils. Maybe George can enlighten us on that, like the others. Right, but they have that, but then they have these other things like soils of state concern,
Yeah.
something like that, which are outside of 1 through 4.
Yeah, it's a different categorization. So
I
the,
wish we had that to look at it right now. You don't think you can find that real quick, but the ag data statement.
I know the soils can be shown, I mean, those are key to, certain things fit into those categories. So like in the soil survey maps that you're referring to, they give you the name. And then they have tables and that go with them, so you'd have to cross-reference.
Right. it's
Right,
really
like-
But yeah, they
complicated.
could definitely just,
So I guess they're at.
color by numbers,
would actually-
essentially,
Yeah.
on the map. Okay.
the map
here
would
you
be
go.
in the initial STV report. There should be a map in there that identifies, but it's the like silt loam or whatever the classification of the soil is, and then there's a key which matches that to whether that falls in 1 through 4. But I have a different map I can send to the board that's a lot
Okay.
more obvious, but I think it's
Yeah.
just a small section with some class 2 soils in the northwest corner that we're solving for, but I can provide
I
that.
think it would be helpful to know how many acres of soil types 1 through 4 are in part of this project, because right now it's very difficult to cross-reference it.
Sure, I
And I
actually
think that that's what we need to understand.
think that should be. Trying to believe where that would be referenced in the plans. That would be on the.
I don't know if it's easily accessible on the plan.
Sure, I
It'd
think
be easier just to make a sheet. and Just.
I can send that in a sheet, that's no problem, yeah, that, sure.
It was like 10%, if I remember correctly.
I think it's last thing, it's so 2%.
But again, there's
Just 2 acres,
Less
maybe, 2 acres.
especially in the stormwater plan, there's a lot of soils. information, but
Yeah, I think
And it'd be easier
that's
to not have
buried
to
probably
pull it out
somewhere
and
in the
report it.
technical stuff, but I'll pull that out, I think
Mm.
that's easy
Okay.
enough, no
Thank
problem,
you.
okay. So we just handed out is a view shed map, so I'll kind of turn it over to Matt from Saratoga.
Quick, I just have a few more questions.
Yeah,
Sorry, Andrew, just
sorry.
quickly. Did you say that, I think at the last meeting, Warren was asking for you to send the Eric Kiviat letter to DEC and US Fish and Wildlife Service?
I believe the board
No, that
wanted
was,
to take its own.
that was us, and that's why I asked, we haven't found who to send it to.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I didn't come up with it.
Okay,
Yeah, if you can have,
yeah, we were
your
supposed to.
biologist or have it, just send us the actual contact so it doesn't get lost.
Okay.
By just
Like, who you
sending
contacting at
directly
Fish and Wildlife
to the
and
field office, so it goes right to whoever.
DEC, whoever's working on the DEC.
Otherwise, you never know where it's gonna go.
Yeah,
Base, Destination. Yeah.
And the other question I had was, at our last meeting, we heard from Kelly Salatis.
Mhm.
And in that, when she was talking, she said that there was, in terms of secret, she felt there was a moderate to large impact on habitat from tree clearing, but then she went on to say she felt it wasn't sufficiently significant to trigger an EIS. So I didn't really understand, I mean, I just didn't really understand that, because if she feels that it's a moderate to large impact, does it, it's unclear as to whether or not that triggers the EIS. Because
Well,
it
that's,
generally-
well, Warren, let's have Warren advise us on that. So we're-
The moderate for large impact doesn't trigger the need for DEIS. You have to then, when you identify the moderate to large impacts, then you go to part 3 of the EAF. And then you determine the significance of the impact before you issue a POS declaration.
So that's on
Two
us to
steps.
decide.
So what are the parameters for understanding whether it's a moderate to large impact?
Well, Warren, I
Well,
could-
If you
Well,
look at
Frank
the-
might be able to help us.
yeah, I could probably just add to what Warren said, the moderate to large impact, that's in the EAF Part 2. So the Part 2 has 18 categories in it. And that's one thing we'd like to suggest to the board again, when we have all of the new submissions from the applicant that he's going over now. I think in the Part 2 EAF, they should be appendices so that you have all of the data in one place. And then you go through those 18 categories, and those are the ones that I handed out at the Saturday, or I discussed anyway, at the Saturday workshop. Now, there can be, just as Warren said, an impact, and I think in our initial review of those 18 categories, visual was, an impact. You need to decide, is it a moderate to large impact, and then if that's checked off, you then need to determine, can something mitigate that? For instance, on visual, the applicants now changed some things. So you then have to evaluate it a bit further to determine whether it constitutes, in your mind, in your judgment, a significant adverse impact. And unfortunately, in answer to your question directly, there is no particular criteria in Sinker that's laid out definitively for that. In fact, I've seen a legal treatise by an attorney who was chair of the New York City Planning Commission on just that issue. What constitutes the word? What does the word significant mean? And what does the word adverse mean? And the answer to that from DEC is that's your judgment, the lead agency's judgment, the planning board's judgment.
There may be some guidance, there's some guidance in the secret handbook.
Yeah, look at the
In the handbook, yes,
but
there's guidance in the
When it
handbook.
comes down to it, it's up to the boards to
Yeah.
That's right.
know it when we see it, paraphrase.
And in reference to
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
No, I'm paraphrasing SCOTUS.
Having that correspondence with DEC and Fish and Wildlife will also help.
Right.
The
workbooks also.
Right.
Helpful information.
Yes. What about, we talked on the phone about this, what about the wood? Like, where are we at?
So we're talking with you folks about a more environmentally friendly way to dispose of these and utilize the wood. So I don't have that today. That's something I'll be providing within the next few weeks.
And whatever that plan would be would perhaps reduce the amount of chipping that's happening?
Ideally,
Yeah,
stay tuned.
all right.
But I think just to kind of tie this back to Elaine's point, I think what Kelly's reference was in a previous meeting was that just the quantity of trees might constitute a moderate impact to the trees. But it's on the applicant to demonstrate how we're mitigating for that impact by another action within our application. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I don't think we've really understood what your mitigation efforts are, though.
Right, I think we're,
That's, they're
I
working.
think that's a view shed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and that we're gonna provide more information on
Okay.
that before the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that's square to the for sure.
Gotta find the county line as.
So I think if no more questions on kind of the list of previous submissions, we can move to the visual stuff.
Yeah,
So
let's-
there it is. I'll turn it over to
Into
Matt.
pictures.
Matt for a few minutes.
Good evening, all. I'm Matt Allen, with Saratoga Associates, and Carson Power contacted me a couple of weeks ago and asked me to help out with understanding the potential visual impact or visibility of the project. And just a quick point of clarification, you were just talking about what constitutes a significant visual impact. DEC does have a guidance document, it's the DEC program policy on visual impact assessment and mitigation. And that has, I think, most of the definitions in it that you're looking for. What it doesn't do, but what it does do is says what is the significant visual impact on resources of statewide significance, but it punts when it comes to places like local roadways or residences, because DEC does not take jurisdiction over common views. They're about to protect resources of statewide significance, state parks, byways, things of that sort. So it does kick it back into the local board's hands to look at impacts on other places such as potentially affected residences. So that's just clarification. If you can take a look at the DEC program policy on visual impact assessment and mitigation, that might help out. But as I said, Carson Power contacted me and asked me to help out understand what the visibility of the project would be. So what you have in front of you is what's known as a view shed map, or also known as a zone of visibility map. And very simply, what that identifies is the geographic area where there is a line of sight to some portion of the project. Or some portion of the panels is what we evaluated. So it's on a color graded scale. The darker blue would be more of the surface area of the panels visible, and the lighter blue would be lesser area visible. If you think about it, if you can see a roof of a structure, maybe you can only see a small part of the roof, that would be the light blue. If you could see all of the roof, that would be the dark blue. So that gives you an idea of the area where you would have the greatest potential for visibility. And what you're looking at is what we refer to as a land cover view shed map. It includes the screening effect, not only of landform, but also of existing intervening vegetation and structures. And the way we develop that is we download LiDAR data, which is a point cloud data set that identifies not only ground elevations, but also elevations of buildings and structures. And we process that data and use it to identify potential screening elements such as woodland hedgerows and structures. And then we run the view shed calculation based on a large number of control points within the fence line. And we run a series of mini view sheds for, I think it was 42 different control points within that yellow fence line. And what we ended up with was 42 mini view sheds that we then overlaid, and that's what gives you the color gradation of blue. Each one is I think a 1% color gradation, or 2%. No, I'm sorry, we use 10% on this. So if you had 10 overlays, it would basically form a solid blue. So it just gives you an idea of where to go to look for a view. It's not absolutely definitive. It's a very good data set. You can pretty much be assured if you're not in the blue that you really will not find visibility of the project. But if you're in the blue, that just identifies areas where further investigation may be appropriate. And of course, what you see are places that you would expect to find long vistas of the project if you have open agricultural land with a downslope facing the project. So you have a vista of the valley, greater potential that you're going to see the site. Obviously, if you're over a ridge line or behind a forest, lesser possibility of visibility. So what this map did is it really gave us a roadmap on where to begin our investigation. It's not a end product of visual impact assessment. It's a process step. It's step one of several steps in understanding the visibility. So this really is our roadmap on where we're going from here. What we did, I believe it was just Monday, we went out in the field and photographed some locations that Carson Power believed were areas of interest. And Andrew can probably address that a little more detail, but Carson Power gave us, I think, probably 12.5 locations that we wanted to gather field photography from, and we wanted to do it as soon as possible because the leaves are becoming on the trees before long. So we got out in the field on Monday and photographed, and we were lucky enough to get to all of the locations that Carson Power asked us to visit, including a number of properties owned by interested residents. The residents were gracious enough to allow us on their property to photograph where those properties intersected the view shed area. We went to key locations on those properties. Most of the time it was a residential house. We were somewhere around the house. We did not venture off into agricultural fields where people typically would not be looking at the view. So we focused on the residential properties. If the owners had a place for us that they wanted us to evaluate, we certainly accommodated that. I just brought an enlargement of the map you're looking at. Probably a little hard to see from here, but I've simply overlaid all of the locations that we have current photography from. And what we're asking of the board tonight is to take a look at these and confirm that we have photographed all of the places that you might be interested in. If we have not, we'll go back out and get that, and we do want to do it very quickly before the leaves come on the trees. We don't want to at all give the impression that we're trying to hide behind the trees when they come out. So we probably have another week to week and a half to accomplish that before we start getting too much green You know, come to my house, I'm right, looking right at the hill. I'm sorry? When you come to my house, I'm looking right at the hill, you're more than welcome. Well, that's why we're here, to identify those places tonight, so that we can get that work done in the next week and come to the board next month with additional information. And what we want to come to the board next month with is the photo analysis. We can do photographic simulations of what the project would look like from those locations. Carson Power has asked us to do that for a number of sites. If we don't have photography, we can do line of sight profiles, which will identify whether or not something can be seen. If you question that you may think there's a view that is not identified by this view shed map, we can cut a line of sight profile, which will identify whether what the view shed is showing is intervening to block that view. So, like I said, a view shed map is not the end product, but it's a working document that helps us begin to understand the visibility.
Great summary.
Smaller copies of that?
We have we do have the view shed maps in front of you. We have not plotted.
Yeah, so this.
Yeah, do you have a map with those?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, this we did the photography on Monday, we
Oh,
put this together today. What I handed out, we submitted earlier in the week to Tricia, and it should be put into the records. Part of the application.
This one?
Yeah, that one we've submitted previously, so this we should get the board.
Could I ask, Mike, this is Frank Fish, could I ask Tricia to just forward what was handed out tonight? I don't think I have what you handed out.
The 2 mile radius, is that industry standard or? Yeah, it's,
Oh, sorry.
there is no specific industry standard for study radius. It's usually based on where we would expect two things. One, where we would expect visibility to begin petering out for a project. This project is only 12 feet off the ground. If it were a, 400-foot communication tower, obviously we would go out farther. But that's, the iterative standard number one is where do you think the view shed is going to begin to peter out, and any visibility is residual. But any visibility beyond 2 miles, the second factor is simply, is visibility from there something that's going to really draw your attention, because now you're so far away. Right. So you have to draw a line somewhere. You could go out to infinity, but
So tell me
2
again,
miles is typical.
what's the difference between that one and this one?
This one.
That one has the points where they took pictures from.
I see. Can I see that when you're done?
This map, this work product was an input for us deciding where we proactively wanted to go capture photo locations. So previously we were gonna do it at the end of this week after the meeting tonight. But the identified areas are pretty limited, and we wanted to make sure we beat leaf off conditions and the weather looked good for Monday, so we went out on Monday. That being said, if there's additional areas that the board would like to see specifically visual renderings from,
Oh, I see.
we're happy to go back on site and take additional photos. I think that's kind of the goal of this exercise now, is to use the visual map as a tool to pick out potential areas of interest to the board where you want to see visual renderings specifically. The line of sight we can do.
Wonder if they know.
Oh, yeah.
Across the street from the front.
Uh-huh.
Never in the other county.
Yeah. I think it's like right.
I have one
It's-
concern.
If these people had built it.
Deal
I know.
with the areas where trees are going to be removed and what kind of impact that will have on the visuals.
The view shed map includes tree removal on site as proposed, so trees on site are not artificially blocking views that will occur after the project is constructed. We went into the LiDAR data and cropped out all above ground LiDAR points within the limits of disturbance as defined by the engineering plan. So that is accounted for in the view shed map. When we do the photo simulations, we're also going to use LiDAR data, but we're going to use it in a different way. We're going to create a surface model of the surrounding terrain, both ground surface and a surface representing vegetation and buildings. So it's the same model we used in the preparation of the view shed, but it's going to be in a 3-dimensional view. And again, we removed all LiDAR points from within the limits of disturbance on the site. So the model that we use to display visibility for the purposes of photo simulations will have those trees removed. So if you can look into the site and trees that are currently growing there are going to be removed, that will be depicted in the photo simulation. But it will also, if the line of sight then goes over the tops of trees that are no longer there into the site, that will be depicted in the photo simulation. So we are absolutely accounting for tree removal.
I have a question, the Gallagher residence, right? Like, we know you can see that from there, yet it didn't pick it up on.
My photographer mentioned that to me, and the reason for that is, I believe he said he took a photograph from the deck of the house. This only accounts for a standing person at ground level. So if you have a house that may be cantilevered over the hillside a little bit and you're actually up some distance from the ground, you could potentially have a view over the tops of the trees that is not accounted for in the view shed. And again, the view shed is a first step. So we don't totally rely on the view shed results, but it is.
Yeah, it's within, they're about 1.86, somewhere like that.
I think I'm trying to find that. I think. It's obvious that on the other side, on the southeast side of that ridge line, they're looking right at that ridge. Right, and that was a big driver in us deciding to proceed up to the top of the ridge line and plant trees along that top contour. To obstruct any view they would have.
So are those trees included in your assessment, those trees to be
In
planted?
the view shed assessment, yes, I did put those trees in there as a 12-foot tall obstruction that would block a line of sight.
Right, so then do we know if you were standing on their deck, whether that tree line would obstruct the view?
The best way to understand that is to do a line of sight profile from the data we have. And then you could easily see what falls along that line that could potentially interrupt a line of sight.
So it's
Excuse me, Michael, can you just show me where your house is, please?
It's, okay, where's, it's right here.
You can circle it. I mean,
Okay, so
Just
that's
so I'm
Charlie's
clear.
barn, so
That's Charlie.
This map
Yeah.
takes into
So your
account the
house
trees
is
that are getting
right.
removed
right here.
and the
Got it.
trees that are mitigating any site
You can
distance,
give
12
this
foot
card
trees,
to-
double planting.
Come over and
So Matt builds a 3D model essentially,
Michael,
and we give him the CAD file from our engineering design. To define the limit of tree clearing, and we also took a tree height survey for everything on that map. So he can cut out everything that will be removed, put in the panels of CAD, and then layer in what will be planted.
So
the ridge from my place, and you can see sky through part of it. And then I don't know which trees they're cutting down, so.
obviously, this
Be
is
great
not
if
an
you
exact science. But to what proportion of confidence should we have in this?
Well, let me give you an example. I do this all the time, more often than any other project type for the telecom industry. And when we do that, a lot of times we fly a balloon on the site, 150 feet above the ground. We use the view shed map as a road map on where we want to target. We don't want to drive aimlessly looking for the balloon. We want to have an idea of where we're likely to see it.
Sure.
And I have never found a noteworthy gap in the view shed when we actually have a target to look for that is expressed by the view shed map.
So I think just on that point, this is not the final deliverable on view shed. This is kind of the map to indicate areas where there could be a potential view. And the shading indicates relative to the other areas, what might have the most substantial view versus the least substantial view. So I guess Carson Power, looking at the map, asked Saratoga Associates to go proactively take photos from the areas that we want to continue to study and provide additional studies to the board. I think that the feedback we're looking for from the planning board tonight is other areas that we did not include on our list. Kind of using this map as a guideline, but if there's other areas that you think need to be demonstrated, we can do that.
Well, I'm gonna say the fire tower. I know it's farther
So
away.
we did take an image from the fire tower. It's too far off. You can see it on this
Yeah,
map,
we
but
didn't extend
we
it.
will-
It's 5 miles, but yes, we
so
have.
we're gonna include the fire tower and Carson Road, which are both outside of this radius.
From that point in Carson Road, nowhere else.
What about Winchell Mountain? What do we determine on
I don't.
So, So that's the edge of the map on the 2 mile mark where you can start to see it increasing going up towards the farm, towards Pulver Road. About 3 o'clock on the map. Yeah.
Up here.
And that's looking from Winchell Mountain coming down the hill. That's where
Oh,
you get
okay,
to
so
see it
yeah.
at this point. Straight across. Right there. But that's from the field.
Right.
Okay, so this house over here, you don't know who that is, and because it's the other county, so. I don't know if we can-
Which house?
It's
In-
underneath the, like,
The darkest blue on the whole map.
Oh, yeah.
On Prospect, there's a house.
It's like
Right, we go
about
past the
where-
barn
where
now,
here.
I think it's the house.
Long driveway weekend. something
really
like
long
that. Yeah,
drive.
yeah. Right,
I mean, they have lived there for a while.
yeah.
So
I'm
just-
just surprised you could see it as much from Ronnie.
Was it?
Yeah.
So I think
Always
just to make it certain,
But-
so the darkest blue does not mean you can see all 40 odd control points. That means relative to all the other blue areas, you can see the most control
More,
points,
yeah.
right?
Right.
So from the top blue, you could see. You know,
And is that like through the trees?
I think what we think it might be is actually over the trees and all the way to the back of the
Yeah,
site,
what-
but we're gonna,
Yeah, I guess so you have to see what that is, what that visual.
that's what we'll
image
provide
is before
over the
you-
next few weeks before the next meeting, right? As any of these viewpoints will provide additional analysis to the board on what actually could be seen. So why don't we do? Yeah, why don't we mark up? Why don't we
And
mark
this
up
house
the-
is on Scrivener Road. That's 2 miles too.
So why don't we do this? I think, again, these studies are resource intensive, so I don't want to study every home in Pine Plains, but I think for certain, anything the board has legitimate concerns about,
That's our other.
Yeah, I would say if you have any questions about why there is no blue in areas that you think there might be, we can do a line of sight profile and that will confirm whether the view shed is accurate or not, and basically tell you why it is as it is.
Yeah. No, it's a bit far. but- Hey, well, Michael gave you his card, right?
yeah,
So
Michael,
these
I
are
can
the-
follow up with you after the meeting.
And this big swath of purple here is where those 2 new houses are.
Which one, this?
Off of 199.
199.
Oh,
Rest of you?
yeah.
So again, we.
Are those houses and barn, what is that?
2 new houses.
House?
Yeah.
Barn.
And the onus is traditionally
Driven
to
around a lot.
be concerned with public. I think we've gone beyond that and considering private residences as well, because there's obviously been a lot of public comments on view sheds. We want to make sure it's documented well. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's what, so
Yeah,
From
I
here
think
on-
that there's a house right underneath that
Mhm.
purple.
So why don't we do, sorry, why don't we do a line of sight from that house, right? Because we have collected photographs here, we can do the visual
Yeah.
renderings. I think some of these visual renderings that are far away are gonna look far away.
Yeah.
But the line of sight might be a little bit more helpful. So the home that's like right above here. Bugs love this.
It's
map.
like up here somewhere. It's not, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I think that's out of Pine Plains.
Yeah, it's.
it's in
Yeah.
Columbia County.
So is that something that the board wants to consider? It's up to you guys.
Yes, because
Yeah.
the town line is screwy out there.
Yeah.
This is close to
It's
3
like
towns.
piecemeal.
Right, yeah, it should be considered.
Their kids go to our schools.
Which is right on the corner of.
So there's the farm. Yeah, yeah, so the home here. Yeah. Okay.
The
There.
farm, on the corner of 199 and Bean River Road.
The house is on the east side of
The
the road.
farm on the
Jack.
corner.
Jack is,
Oh, okay.
but,
You mean the horse?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right here.
Their new house in Big Grove.
no, that,
No,
It's-
right in
it's
both
on-
Like in the
corners.
hamlet?
where the heck is Bean River Road? Okay,
Brigadoon Farm.
Here.
Her farm name is.
House?
no, here, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
When you're in that intersection, you can see right.
Agreed, but
One hundred four and 100.
I don't know.
Yes, yes,
Let's check.
yes.
Yeah, that's on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any visual from that property, like at all.
From anywhere in Culver's Corners.
When you're in the intersection, you can see right up into there.
Mm,
That house is right on the intersection. Like cars have literally hit it.
Well, I mean. Did you do it just?
We'll do a line of sight from the intersection to make
intersection,
everybody
yeah.
comfortable, no problem. Right at trees. That's similar to the line of sight we previously did. Right, that was one of the examples we did from
Yeah.
was one of the structures down here.
Right.
What about Winchell Mountain, the road coming down? Let's talk about public, like right here, when
Oh, the intersection right there.
yeah, when you come around where everyone stops and takes pictures and,
It used to be Diane Willis and somebody.
I'm sorry?
Used to be Diane Willis. It's up on the hill.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna have a visual.
No,
of that for-
no, it's pretty high up there.
Like right here
Yeah, but
on
it's-
Winchell Mountain Road.
On the east
Where's
side,
the
on the west
exact
side of
point
that
you-
hill, so I don't think there's any.
There's like two, right? Which-
How about the high point? We'll find the high point.
Yeah.
And we'll do the
Yeah,
high
well, it's
point.
weird, right? Cause like you come,
Here,
yeah, this is like the best view right there.
Right here?
Yeah, even though this is higher, like you kind of see it, but then there's like a house here and there's trees.
Yeah.
Like this right here. I mean, if you haven't driven that, like from Millerton and
I've
seen,
driven all those roads. I think
Yeah.
you can see Sugar Hill Farm pretty.
I mean, you can see the
clearly.
Catskills and everything from.
Yeah.
Right, from that spot.
To the lights of the.
You can really see the substation.
Yeah.
Right.
What about on the other side, guys? Anything on the west side?
Is all this vegetation is gonna remain. This is also all conserved and unlikely to ever change, right? So I think this is extremely limited.
The only high points on that side are Globe Hill and up behind, well, your other
This is all,
property up
yeah,
there,
that's
yeah.
all conserved too, there'll not be a house there, so.
Those are the highest points, right?
So our next steps here will be to provide additional analysis to the board studying these points. It'll be a combination of visual renderings and line of sight analysis to help the board understand where visual impacts might be and what they are, right? That's awesome. Okay, thanks.
He's
guys.
blocking the camera.
Yeah.
I see that entrance.
George, you have any comments on these visuals? This is what we've been looking for, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll be happy with the simulations that you're gonna see. I hope so.
Frank, you have anything about this?
No, I think my main thing from a seeker point of view is now that you've looked this over, is to get all of these again, this product in the EAF, because it shows your a hard look at all these issues. I was thinking about this tonight. You've just taken a very detailed look about this, and I think, I think the presentation that Matt Allen made is thorough, and when we see the next products, we can put that as a part 2 EAF.
Okay. No comments, Warren, I think.
I'm good.
All right, what else? Is there anything else?
So that was the,
There you go, thank you.
that was the primary item for tonight. So I guess just a few other things that we're tracking to deliver to the board over the next few weeks to consider for the May meeting. One, we did conduct a bedrock survey on site. So I know we talked about previously, there's obviously a visible section of bedrock right off the road. It's a little bit unclear whether that piece of bedrock was actually in the array or out of the array. So we did a bedrock survey of the entire site to ensure that we're not paneling over any bedrock areas. So that's survey's been completed. The data will be available shortly. We'll provide that to the board. We may have to reflect that on the site plan as well. So there could be one more revision to the site plan where we layer in the bedrock survey as additional data.
This is, by the way, just while I have it in my mind, I want Tricia, in the public folder, I'm gonna create like, did we do this already? The current application, like a folder within the Carson Power thing saying the active files or something like that, and then historical files that you submit. So this is here, this is the active, these are the current
Yeah.
this is the most current site plan, this is the most current whatever. And then once you do that and get it, and then Andrew, send it to Andrew, the link, and then if or you probably have to
Yeah.
just look at it and say, oh yeah, these are right, these are all the current
Sure.
ones. And-
I would actually suggest, because I think the majority of everything, aside from the original site plans and original EAF, is active. It's probably easier to do an archive folder and just,
Right,
you'll be moving computer files around. I totally, and once that's done, I'll validate that the active
However you guys
applications
want.
are correctly. We're also working on a glare study for the board. That was something we discussed previously. I think I just want to note, if you look at the map, most of the visual impacts are potential visual impact are north. The panels are oriented facing south, right? So I just want to keep that in mind as we evaluate here for any potential glare impacts. That the homes to the north would not be far less likely to have any sort of glare, right? Beyond that,
it's just, it's weird.
So as you say that the photo simulation will be of. From that angle then.
the modules as they are on the site plan will be what you see in the simulation. So Matt actually has built a 3D model, which will be used to render the simulations. So, pretty neat. Additional information from our correspondence with DEC and US Fish and Wildlife. So again, that's kind of at their, right, we're waiting for them to get back to us, but we provided what they needed to make a determination. On our plan for plants and animals, so hopefully we'll have that by the May meeting as well. Additional information on tree disposal, right? Tree disposal in a more environmentally friendly way. And then the visual studies that we just discussed. So our hope is, and that's kind of the list that we've been keeping of things that the board has asked us to provide as supplements to our application and issues that they want more information on. We're hopeful that we'll submit all these materials. This will kind of constitute the completion of our application supplements, and the board is comfortable in May moving forward in the seeker process based off of the materials that we're submitting over the next few weeks, and considering all the additional materials we've submitted since the first public hearing in January.
So Frank, who are you gonna do these appendices, or is that something the applicant is supposed to do? Like, who does that?
Well, I think the applicant's providing you with the appendices themselves. What we'd like to do is just have that part 2 EAF and just attach all the appendices to the part 2, so it's a complete seeker document. Once you have that, and we know the applicant has agreed to do those, then you're in a position to, I think, make a determination of significance based on that part 2. And a determination of significance, again, is whether this whether you go with a negative declaration, that is that there are no significant adverse impacts with the mitigation in the proposal, or it wasn't sufficiently mitigated and there you feel there is still a significant adverse impact, that would require then a full EIS. So trying to get as much into this EAF for 2 reasons. One, to show that you have made, to document, you've made a hard look, which I think you are doing. And then secondly, to provide a solid basis for you to make the decision to determination of significance.
Okay. And. Right, and we just have to make sure any sort of mitigation that we're considering is included in those appendices or in those materials.
Right, and you'll need eventually, you're gonna have a site plan approval here, so, and a special permit. So all of those can be made requirements of the special permit.
Mr. Lyons?
Just want to ask the board to make sure that the public has an opportunity to comment on the revised versions of the plan before you make your.
We haven't closed the public
I
hearing, so,
understand that, but I know
yeah,
that
and we'll,
applicant was pushing for you to, receive these materials in May and make a determination. I just would like, the opportunity to comment on, get material out to our experts and be able to comment.
sure.
And I would request that the stuff you send us comes just a few days before the 10th of May. Because if it comes the 9th of May, we're not going to be able to absorb it
Sure.
by the meeting time. So it was a few days.
Agreed.
All right. Sounds like that's it Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I have. For now, I guess I just wanted to clarify, obviously, you know that we're gonna be submitting additional materials. How do you foresee the May meeting going? And like what do you want to, what do you want to consider at the meeting? I think.
The main meeting is, we're going to see where we're at with all these materials and we're satisfied and the board is comfortable. Then we'll look, I'll talk with, we have to talk with Warren probably and discuss that.
Coordinate that with the public hearing.
Right,
So, it may be that we're gonna have to have a meeting and
we might,
public hearing
and then a
here,
public
and
hearing
then
meeting after that.
totally revised plan. So
Do we have to go down to the 18 points? That's of the,
when you make your secret determination,
Yeah.
Frank could advise you on that, but yeah, you're gonna go through the part two and all the supplements.
go through it fresh based on all the stuff that's
Make
been.
your evaluation in a part three analysis, which is your responsibility.
Gotcha.
Believe agency. And
I
that's
mean,
gonna
we
be
under-
Really complex.
Yes.
Not going in.
Don't order those panels yet.
So if the board anticipates doing another open public comment period, would you feel comfortable scheduling that now?
I wanna see this stuff.
Waiting for US Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, I wanna see everything.
There you go.
I'm not gonna kind of schedule something and then we'd be like, oh, well, we don't have this, and then what's the point? And then we don't have to complete it. I want everything, I mean. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a pain because we have to like meet to schedule the darn thing, but like, I'm not gonna do that now.
It may be that we'll have to schedule a special meeting for the public hearing. Keep on
Right.
those sort of-
But I mean, to schedule the public hearing, we're gonna have to,
I
might
don't
have,
have a position.
you know, and hopefully get, probably just, hopefully, yeah, we have it.
But we haven't even submitted the caveat letter yet.
Right.
Okay.
Who is US Fish and Wildlife?
Well, we're trying to find a
I'm trying to
contact.
find somebody.
Yes.
who's-
Yeah, I mean,
You'll get me that information.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
oh, by the way, that's another thing. I asked all our experts that we've hired and to give us CVs. And actually, Warren, I pulled yours from your website, so I didn't ask you, but I hope that's okay. I pulled your CV you have on your website. But unless you want to update it, you can and send it to me. But and I was just gonna submit that into the record and put it on and circulate it, just so you guys can see, you know, who's advising us. Okay, all right, so that's where we're at. So get us the stuff.
Stop just telling. All right, thank you.
All right. Okay. Oh. So we have something that's not on the agenda that came up, if they asked Warren about. We got an email from Stissing Center. So they're going with whatever improvements or repairs they have to make. They have to put a new roof on the building.
Already?
And yes, well, I don't think they replaced, I don't think they ever replaced. And so it's gonna delay their construction of the pergola thing that we approved. Remember, they put up the temporary thing. So they are, I guess, coming with, and I guess they're gonna be moving forward with. Remember on the plan, there was that back portion that they never built yet, and in the original plan that we approved. They're looking to come in, gentlemen, can you guys step outside, please? We still have a meeting going on. They're looking to come to us. And I guess to go ahead, whatever these updated plans are. Next month. However, we had also. At the last approval, we had that temporary roof thing that they put in. We said it had to be gone by May 15th. I guess that's not gonna happen now, and they're looking for an extension. So is that something they just come to us in May and say, hey, can we could just vote on, we have to do a resolution, right?
Ask them to formally request an extension, you can vote on it.
Okay,
But if they can get it to us before the meeting, so we can have a resolution in place, that would be helpful.
okay. So I guess you're gonna be coming to us with this, you know. Going ahead, so there's probably changes from the original thing, so it's gonna be another site plan and.
So it's gonna be another site plan.
Yeah, it's gonna be another
But
site.
this is the final, they want to finish everything.
We'll see.
That's what they said.
They intend, right? The other thing is, did you have a chance to speak with the town board about what are we doing
Yeah, I
with
thought
the?
we came to a resolution. You're right, the planning board can adopt that by its own resolution. You're talking about.
Yes, remote,
What are you talking
Remote.
remote, emergency remote attendance.
If you want, I can prepare a resolution for you to adopt.
I think it'd be good to have, I mean, why not?
I don't know that the town board decided they want to do that, the remote meeting.
We did not decide.
Yeah, so we'll do one. Town board has to do it by local law. but
Right.
we do it.
And again, it's only emergencies, it's not like we can just, you know, it'd have to be, yeah, it'd be very limited.
We just adopted a very liberal policy through the library board. It should be on the website if you want to take a look.
You adopted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Um,
lenient, very, very.
Drew, is there anything
sir.
you have for us or any questions about anyone approaching you?
Nothing tonight, just to keep in mind that Stewart's will be going to the ZBA the end of this month. So potentially you could be looking at that next month.
The county came back with a fairly, you know, they're not happy about the granting that setback variance, so
Okay.
you haven't seen that? Oh, well, yeah, well, I guess we could send it to you. I mean, it's, you know, it's for the, I had, just said, because it's before Scott, it's not really before
I know,
us,
but I
but.
just- yeah.
But they came back and said, you know, they officially commented or so it's majority plus one, so that's 4.
Oh, they commented.
Oh, yeah.
That's serious stuff, so we.
So it's, and the ZBA has someone recused, so there's only 4 members and they don't have an alternate. So it'd have to pass 4-0, and I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
not gonna happen.
Yeah, send me that, like, on top of that.
Tricia, can you send that to Warren, please?
This level.
And then they're waiting on the fence thing for Carson Power for us, right?
They're
Yeah,
not making a final.
right, they're waiting for us to do our, or I guess our secret.
That's appropriate.
That's all I can think of at the moment for you.
You can't think of anything else?
Yeah.
May's gonna be a busy meeting.
Oh, yes. Aren't they all now, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Warren. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Drew.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yes, now we gotta do. We're gonna do 3 of the minutes. I didn't get a chance to read this one. I was hoping I would kind of be able to do it, but the third workshop.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Jordan.
So I went through the minutes and there was a couple of like spelling changes, purview, things like that. There was a purview of spelling. I made one semi-substantive change though. In the first workshop meeting, there was a sentence where it talked about Frank saying that we can pull it up if you guys want to. It's like maybe we should, because my memory right now. Pull up the in the folder.
March.
March 1st.
March 1st. Yeah, the one. Google being helpful. All right, look for where it talks about Frank talking. Let's, oh, well, unless you can see my, can you see my changes? I don't know, or just go down. Should be able. Monitor. So look for fish, I guess. It was on the left, it was Taylor. Marsh, let me keep. Was it only Taylor? Or was Frank there?
Taylor.
Oh, man,
The board
am I
was-
misremembering?
It was just Taylor.
Am I misremembering which meeting?
Control that.
I was trying to do that, but it's. I'm not
And
good with
if, can you
people,
see
so-
the changes? Can you go to tools? Okay. Oh, crud. We gotta get used to using the citation. I should have just,
Can I do, yeah, can I do control? No, doesn't, oh, find a document there. Okay, so what does it have to do with?
You put in the word you were looking for.
Yeah, It was the.
large, put in large. So you wanna-
Oh,
Well. What it was when it intimated that we had made a large impact. Now keep going. What's that?
No, it's saying-
All right, that's only one large.
All right, so,
Is it just for community?
no, it was talking about large impacts, basically intimating that he would help us, that, BFJ would help us. Document that or something like that. And it intimated that we had already made a determination of a large impact and I made it potential large impact. That's all. I mean, it's. But it intimated that we had made like a determination of a large impact. So no one has any trouble changing that to wherever that is. Okay, so with that, and we incorporated these versions incorporated any other changes that Ian or whoever else submitted. Ethan, not Ian, I'm sorry. All right, so can I please have a motion to accept the what is it, March 1st? March 1st
Yeah.
workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
I have to
opposed?
Abstain, I wasn't.
Okay.
Two.
All right, all opposed? All right, those meeting minutes have been accepted. Now for the,
Regular meeting.
it's a regular meeting, yes, the regular meeting, for March. Which I don't remember the date,
March 8th.
March 8th. Can I have a motion to accept those? Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Those minutes have been accepted. Workshop meeting 2 for the month of March, the one at the library. Yeah, Kate and you, all three of you were down here, right?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the public meeting has been accepted and we'll save this for the next time. I don't know where we're at. I saw, what do you call it, came through with, Eventbrite gave me a notification for, a class. So, just remember, we still have to do our education, so keep an eye out for opportunities or do the online things, but I saw that come through. I can't remember what it was even about, but actually, I think I was gonna do it though. Sounded interesting.
Did you forward that?
Yeah, they're supposed to send us like an email. Did we get any education?
Get them from event. I get them from. the-
Well, for the Cornell, yeah, because you had to sign up to Eventbrite to attend them, and you haven't done it yet, so that's why you're not getting them. Yeah, I'll look and send forward. Yeah, I think it was Department of County Planning or whatever.
Oh, all right.
I don't know, am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. I think we're good. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Can I have a second? All in favor?